Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Combat Craig. I am Combat Craig. I have Raider X with me, and we are going to talk about major changes that are going to be happening to tinnitus. They're in the works now. We're going to kind of go over the framework of what they've proposed, and ultimately, this will if there will be some changes. We don't predict a whole lot of them, so what we're going over here should be good. Say hi to everybody, Raider X.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
I like your gorilla shirt. What's that all about?
Gorilla in training.
You certainly are. Perfect. All right, so we will put both of us on the screen here. Um, if you want to learn more about the VA claims process, you can join my bootcamp at combatcraig.com, and all medical or all VA claims, disability claims, come out of medical evidence. Uh, Contact my med team if you're missing a current diagnosis, your symptoms accurately documented on a DBQ. This is all medical evidence stuff that you'll need to win your claim, and you can go to combatcraig.com to contact my med team. So let's talk. Let's push it over to you and have you talk about the first part. We only did some of the parts of this page of this document. I'll leave it in the description below. So the number 2 here, the proposed changes. Hit
Okay,
it.
so all right, I'm scrolling back up on the document. So the proposed changes, although the VA will not alter the definition of hearing loss for compensation purposes, it proposes to update several of the current terminology found in 38 CFR 3.385, 4.85, and 4.86. VA also proposes a note to 4.85, adding a 10%, and 4.85 is the actual hearing loss criteria. So they're proposing to add a 10% evaluation for non-compensable hearing loss with tinnitus present, where tinnitus is related to the diagnosis of hearing loss. Now, that is very important because that does not raise the issue of military noise exposure. And we don't know, to be determined, how military noise exposure is going to be impacted in the future by tinnitus. That's going to be a big question mark, which isn't answered in this document. So just stay tuned for that. But bottom line, what that means is if you have a 0% evaluation for hearing loss, which most people will, you're going to get and if you have a diagnosis of tinnitus, which is related to that hearing loss, then you're now going to have a diagnosis of hearing loss with tinnitus, and that's evaluated at 10%. So they're basically combining the two.
So kind of like for rating purposes and claim purposes and strategy and stuff, it that part doesn't change too much from now. I mean, the way they do it is different, but right now you get a 0% for hearing loss, 10% for tinnitus, so it's similar as it shakes out, right?
Right now it is, but you got to remember though, a
I know
lot
they're
of
going to combine it. I'm just being big
no,
picture. We
no,
should
no,
be
no,
focusing on small value claims anyway.
right. But a lot of times when there's nothing in your service treatment records and you're trying to connect a lot of things secondary to tinnitus, which you are able to do, you're legitimately able to do that. But the problem is now they throw an extra monkey wrench because now you have to have now your tinnitus has to be associated with hearing loss. So before, where
Right.
you just had noise exposure hearing tinnitus, now that tinnitus has to be associated with hearing loss. So that, like I said, that throws an additional monkey wrench into the mix. So it's going to make it that
Right.
much harder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely, this particular change is not geared towards helping veterans, but you know these changes come depending on where you are in the claims process. If you're still active duty, been out for 40 years, finally thinking about it, these changes will happen when you're ready to file your claim. You educate yourself about the VA disability process and how they rate things. And this just to hop over here on the screen share. When he's talking about 38 CFR 3.385 and that kind of stuff that's highlighted, and there's this weird little dollar sign thing. This is all the law, and that is the CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 4, Schedule for Rating Disabilities, and that is where you need to go. So you find out, you know, how your disability may be rated. So you could work that into your strategy. If your strategy is getting compensated in money, then which it should be, then you want to go after things that actually pay. Um, Hearing loss and tinnitus will end up being a way to establish service connection. That doesn't really change a whole lot. So let's go down to this next part and talk about how this change how this change is going to look. So let me scroll down here, and we'll go to that. You know what we're talking about.
Okay, so you right at number 4, percentage evaluation for hearing loss. Okay, so the VA
third one down.
Yeah. So the VA proposes to evaluate tinnitus as part of its underlying pathology and to delete diagnostic code 6260 entirely. So 6260, as we all know, is the diagnostic code for tinnitus. So they're going to get rid of that diagnostic code entirely. If you're already service connected for tinnitus, don't worry about it. You're grandfathered in. They're not going to get rid of your current 10% evaluation. They're just, once this law comes out, which right now looks like April of 2025, it comes when it comes, but tentatively we're looking at April of 2025 for this to kick in. So the old rules still apply. We're just going over what's being proposed for the future. But you will be grandfathered in. So in other words, tinnitus will be compensated through the application of diagnostic code 6100, which is hearing loss, 6204, which is peripheral vascular disorders, 6205, which is Meniere's syndrome, 8045, which is TBI, 8046, which is cerebral atherosclerosis, which is like plaque in the blood vessels, a hardening of your blood vessels in your brain. That's what that is. And then 9305, which is major or mild vascular neurocognitive disorder.
Okay, so these are, it'll be compensated through, so you have to have one of these conditions?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have to have one of these things. So basically, tinnitus is basically going to turn into a secondary of one of these things, and these are the diagnostic codes.
It's going to be a with tinnitus situation. You're not going to have a standalone tinnitus. It's going to be associated with those conditions. And it's not the only one. Hearing loss is the only one where it's going to actually bump it up 10%. So if it's non-compensable, like I just talked about earlier, with the hearing loss, it's non-compensable. Now your hearing loss with tinnitus would be bumped up to 10%. Now, if any of these other ones, these other new diagnostic codes, if those are 0%, it's unclear whether
if those will get the automatic 10% bump, just hearing loss at this point.
Right now it looks like it's just hearing loss. It doesn't look like any of the other ones is going to bump it up at 10% to a 10%. Because
and
now,
to be clear on these changes, this is to establish service connection for tinnitus. This doesn't affect if you already have a rating for tinnitus and you're trying to connect secondaries to it. That's a total separate thing. Nothing's changed there. So if you already have a rating for tinnitus, or once you get one, secondaries, unless you're in the 1 year presumptive period. Let's continue on the screen share.
Okay, so for associated tinnitus, for tinnitus associated with service-connected hearing loss in particular, the presence of tinnitus generally does not impact earning capacity. We can agree to disagree on that, because a lot of people will say the contrary, that the tinnitus is so bad that it is a leading, it's with all the secondary conditions that are hooked up with it, but that's neither here nor there. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, but there's the loophole word in there, right? Generally, that's like using the word normal, like normal people. That's undefined. So general, just when you take everything with a grain of salt, there's loophole words in here. Generally is one of them.
Right, but I mean, you would agree with me though that that doesn't. It is what it is. So whatever.
Right.
But for the case of reading what it says here, the presence of tinnitus generally does not impact earning capacity beyond what is already contemplated at the compensable levels of hearing loss. Though VA recognizes the presence of tinnitus combined with non-compensable hearing loss could have more than 0% impact on earning capacity. Thus, diagnostic code 6100 will provide a 10% evaluation with tinnitus associated with hearing loss only when hearing loss is non-compensable. Only when hearing loss on its own does not warrant a 10% evaluation. So if your hearing loss is at 10, you're not going to double dip and get a 20. You know, 2 10s equals 19, which equals 20. You're not going to get that.
So they're just specifically focusing in on the 0% for hearing loss that generally most of us get or whatever. If that's the case, then you'll get the bump if you also have tinnitus that was caused by the hearing loss.
Which leads to the pyramid thing, the 4.14 higher of two evaluations. You're going to get the higher of the two. So, you know, tinnitus is at 10, hearing loss is 0. It combines, so you get the combined 10% evaluation.
Yep. All right, moving on. To that end, is that where we're at?
Yes, to that end, the VA will add 2 notes under diagnostic code 6100. The first note will list examples of which disabilities contemplate tinnitus as a symptom of a given underlying pathology. The second note will provide that tinnitus is only compensated as part of an underlying service-connected condition. The VA notes this proposal will have no impact on veterans currently in receipt of service connection for tinnitus under diagnostic code 6260. These evaluations are governed under the provisions of 38 CFR 3.951A, which is basically, which I refer to, they're grandfathered in, so you're good to go if you've already got service connection established separately under 6260. It's just 6260.
When they say notes, is that like the law is going to remain the same in the CFR, and there's going to be like an asterisk or something? Is that
if you scroll down toward scroll down in your document?
Yep.
Keep on.
Oh, there's an example down there, huh?
Yes. Yeah. If you keep on scrolling toward the end of that, you're going to see the proposed rating schedule.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. So I see it right here. So it'll be 6200 and then note. So it's not an asterisk. Yes. It's just note : Okay.
Right. Actually, you'll see the note under 6100 right under the hearing chart. You'll see 6100 hearing. And then you see the note.
I'm in a different place. This document has like 1,000 pages, but yeah, I'm showing it on the screen right now. All right, okay. Cool. So how are you feeling about this? What do you think is going to change? My sense is this is not a positive change for veterans.
No, because we don't know how military noise exposure plays into it. Without knowing how military noise exposure plays into this equation, it's hard to say one way or the other. But the way it's looking right now, until military noise exposure is added in, we can only assume it's being taken out, because nowhere in this discussion is there anything to do with military noise exposure. And previously, tinnitus dealt strictly with military noise exposure and whatever your MOS was. Because the question that the examiner would be asked is, the veteran's tinnitus, one of the questions on the hearing loss exam, is it due to their military noise exposure? And you would list on the examination what their military noise exposure is, and each MOS is assigned high, moderate, mild probability of military noise exposure. So when you take that aspect out, now you have to actually have an association with hearing loss, so it makes it that much harder. So it takes half of the ways to have tinnitus established taken away from you, because now you can either be related to hearing loss or to military noise exposure. This doesn't show an avenue of where military noise exposure is going to be allowed to establish for service connection. So to me, that's
that loud noise exposure list thing. The thing that it doesn't capture at all is what if you're tonight, like the military is 24/7, 365. So it can happen easily, not at work. So it doesn't capture that. There's plenty of places you could be, whatever, not, they still own you and all your problems. So I don't know if this just doesn't seem like it's going to make things any easier, but that loud MOS list, I guess that one worked in my favor because I was high. But if you don't have that, and yeah, I'll just say these changes aren't in effect right now as well. Like we still have, it looks like till April 2025. So old rating criteria is in effect until this actually changes.
Absolutely.
Do you have some comments open as well, or you can, and I'll throw a couple
Yes.
up on the screen and
Um,
just kind of scroll through, and we'll start, and I'll just throw them up here and just comment, and then when you can, you will too. So Terry
um,
says, I have severe tinnitus. So severe, there's one kind of tinnitus, and that's just tinnitus. You don't have, you either have it or you don't, and it's in one ear or both ears, and it's a 10% rating. So mild tinnitus and moderate tinnitus and severe tinnitus all get paid at the same level. That's not the way a lot of things are compensated currently, but that's the way tinnitus is. Rob saying that you're grandfathered in, and I see this grandfathered thing in here quite a bit. So yes, that's exactly what he was saying, and we showed the law, right? That basically says grandfathered in. I can't
yeah.
remember what that code was or exactly where it is. So basically, yes, we are grandfathered in. Although it is kind of weird having, you know, it'll just be morphed if they come in and mess with your rating for some reason. Keep
So,
keep making complaints that you still have tinnitus and you won't have that problem.
so Scott Clark is asking. So tinnitus would have to be linked to hearing loss. That
Where
is
is that? I'll throw it on the screen. Where? Okay, I got it.
Scott Clark. Um,
I got it. Let's go ahead.
okay. So yeah. Um, so yeah. So tinnitus would have to be linked to hearing loss in the future.
Or
Yes.
one of the other four diagnostic codes that we went over.
Correct.
Right.
But the easiest way would be hearing loss.
Yes.
But you can also see where a correlation can be made. You know, obviously, if you have a TBI and your bell got rang, obviously you can get tinnitus that way as well.
And TBI is another one of those that there's pyramiding issues that are present. Everything has pyramiding issues potentially present for sure. TBIs do. Make sure that your doctor is pulling things apart so you're not getting combined ratings and not getting paid. You see any more comments that I should point out?
Okay, so Roe is asking what the other four are. So to go over that list again,
Where's row? Let me throw it on the screen first. Where is that? Towards the bottom?
very bottom says
Okay, what are
Roe.
the other four? Okay, yep.
Okay, so it's obviously hearing loss, uh, which is diagnostic code 6100, peripheral vestibular disorder 6204, Meniere's syndrome 6205, TBI 8045, cerebral arteriosclerosis 8046, and then 9305, which is major or mild vascular neurocognitive disorder. So that's on the mental health side of things.
Okay.
And those are yeah, perfect.
Yep. All right. Jake's custom parts. I'm just kind of hanging at the bottom of the comments here, so it's easy for both of us to get to. Let me put this screen back on both of us. So let's see.
So
Jake's
Emma,
custom parts is saying I was denied on hearing loss, but given tinnitus first. So currently they're two separate things. So tinnitus is rated differently than hearing loss, and the way they do it with an audiologist and stuff is different, but that makes sense to me. Denied on hearing loss, but given tinnitus, and you probably did better out of the two because you probably would have got a 0% for hearing loss. So you wouldn't have. It's non-compensable. We don't want zeros. So that worked out right and probably better for you. What do you think?
no, I would definitely agree. So MR Hitstick 42 is asking, I currently have an open claim for migraine secondary to tinnitus, and it's been stuck at step 3 for a solid 3 months. First off, ignore the steps. They don't mean shit. So that's the
Right.
first thing. Second, your claim's already open, so you'd be grandfathered in. So there's no worry about any of that.
Well, it's
They
not
can
even grandfathered because the law hasn't even changed. It's just the way that
exactly.
it is.
Well, assuming he's saying his claim's been open for X amount of time, so
Oh, I
assuming
see. I see.
he still has an open claim, he doesn't have to worry about if he's grandfathered in. So he's
The original claim was submitted prior to this date of change sometime in the future, so your grandfathered in that way too. Yep.
yes.
Yeah, and you've had to do this when you're rating people. You've run into this, I'm sure, because you were there for a long time. You ran into these periods of time when you have to give people the grandfathered rating. What kind of training did they provide for you to be aware of that?
Here's the law. Here's when it comes in effect. Remember not to you know, it's
Pay
basic
attention to
training.
your dates and times, basically.
Yeah.
Do it right. Like, not much training, just don't make mistakes. Yeah.
No, here's
So not
here's
much.
the changes. Here's the key points. Try not to fuck it up.
Right. All right. So they're taking away tinnitus. Yes, they're taking away tinnitus as a standalone condition with a diagnostic code. You got another one?
So Tony Cossi, yeah, I've had tinnitus at 10% for over 10 years now. If I understand correctly, the changes will not affect me. Is that correct? Yes. You are good to go. You are grandfathered in. You're already at the schedule maximum at 10%, so you have nothing to worry about.
And I'm going to just not make this more complicated with the 20-year rule where everything's subject to change. But that is also true. Out lollygagging says, for my hearing loss, they gave me hearing aids. So the way that works is, to have a disability, it needs to be disabling. So typically, and hearing loss seems like a big one for sure, but they don't think so, and they don't rate it that way. So if you have hearing loss and they can fix it with hearing aids, then you no longer have a disability. That's why getting 0% or low ratings happens so much. And you want to say something?
I'm going to push back on that. 0% is disabling. 0% is just non-compensable. A 0% evaluation is a disabling rating, which is why you're entitled to hearing aids. It's just a non-compensable rating.
Right. It is still, good point. It is still service connected, and versus non-service connected. So that part's huge. Thanks for catching me glossing over that one. All right. Let's see what else we had here. Do you have another one? How about this one? Ro wants to, can you explain insomnia? You can. So let's let you do that. Can you explain insomnia? It seems to be a tricky one.
I can, but I thought we were going to do a separate video on that because there's going to be changes.
Yeah, just do the Cliff Notes version real quick.
Insomnia is you're not going to get, insomnia is a mental health symptom. You're not going to get a standalone rating for insomnia. It's going to get attached to another mental health evaluation. So it'll be major depressive disorder with insomnia. Because the way right now, unless the diagnosis is primary insomnia, and I'm really not trying to get in the weeds with this, that's why it deserves its own video. There's a difference between primary insomnia and insomnia. Insomnia is just a symptom, whereas primary insomnia is an actual diagnosis. So with insomnia,
and we will do that as a separate video, but just kind of as a practical matter, how you and I experience it, because we have mental health ratings. Insomnia is a symptom of
which
other right
under the exam that's referred to as chronic sleep impairment is what your insomnia symptomatology is.
Check, I've got that.
So
all right, let's stay on tinnitus. All right, so see Richard's coming here. So will tinnitus still be a step for secondary conditions such as secondary migraines, depression, sleep apnea? Yes, that doesn't change. We are talking about changes to how you're going to establish service connection for tinnitus. Once you have it, then you can file secondaries the exact same way that I've been talking about for years. And the examples that you listed here: migraines, depression, sleep apnea, all high value claims, but sleep apnea not. I mean, it's high value. It's just got high problems along with it. We're going to make a video about that soon.
Okay, so Rochelle is asking, my VA provider denied sleep study and only issued a sleep class. Any tips on getting sleep study to test for sleep apnea? Yes, do not do the at-home sleep study. Get your pulmonologist to actually order you a legit overnight sleep study somewhere. That's your best.
There's actually a step before that, and that's going to your primary care and telling them that you're not necessarily you have sleep apnea because you're not a doctor. You can't diagnose that, but you can say that you have symptoms. And what this is it's called a means test. So once you get into the conversation with your primary care, they're going to ask you, how big's your neck, or they might measure it. Do you have restless leg syndrome? There, you could Google sleep apnea means test, and there's like 5 things on there, and you actually need to pass that test before you get into the conversation that he's talking about. And that's also something that you have some control over. When they say they're going to send you some little sleep thing, tell them to fuck off, and you want to go to the actual full-blown sleep center where they hook you up and watch you sleep for every minute you're sleeping, like I did, and I think you did that too as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
No,
no comparison.
Yeah. Okay, so
anything else?
Why is Kanye West is asking, I'm at 70% PTSD with secondary alcohol disorder, but on
See that one.
okay. PNC. Under the new criteria, I feel I could qualify for 2 categories in mental health to get 100%, mainly not to be income limited. If you're looking at 2 categories for mental health, that's pyramiding. You're only going to get one mental health diagnosis, and then they're just going to add PTSD with alcohol disorder and depressive disorder and X and Y and Z. You guys have got to get it through your heads. You're only going to get service connected for one mental health disorder. I don't care how many diagnoses you have, just one mental health diagnosis.
I have 5 of them, and episodic alcohol use disorder is one of my mental health conditions, and it still stays at 70. If you feel you meet the criteria for 100% mental health rating, then you need to actually meet that criteria. And as it sits right now, that's another one that's going to have some changes to it, but it relates to your social and occupational impairment, and it has examples, but it's basically total social and occupational impairment. And you're having things like halos, and there's all sorts of stuff going, hallucinations, right? There's a few other key ones, but if you do not meet that criteria, then you won't get 100%. And most of us don't, and 70% is fair. I would go elsewhere if I was you.
Now, this is a good time to actually, now we're talking about mental health a little bit, and the new rating schedule that's going to come out next April for mental health. You guys might want to go back to a video we did 8 or 9 days ago where we actually discussed the changes for the mental health and how those can affect future ratings. Just,
And speaking of going back to things, you might want to go back to combatcraig.com and sign up for my boot camp if you want to learn more about the VA claims process. We're both on live sessions every couple of weeks. You can ask us questions. We'll see if we can help. And also, that's where the link to our med team resides. And at the end of the day, this all comes down to medical evidence. My med team can help you out with that. Contact them and tell them what you're trying to get, and they will answer. All
okay,
right.
so
do you have any more?
See the Dawn, 1569. I was granted 10% for tinnitus and had to pay all my separation back. I don't get my first deposit until 2027. Shake my head. Yeah, you got fucked, unfortunately. But whenever anybody asks me if the VA offers you separation pay, anything of that nature, that is in lieu of you filing a claim against the VA for future benefits. So I would just tell somebody who's exiting service, if they are offered money as a part of getting out, kindly decline that money, because anything you get 99.99999, there's always an exception to the rule, but 99.9% of the time you're going to get stuck paying that back before you receive VA compensation. And when you're only getting a 10% evaluation, that's where you're getting fucked and having to wait for 3 more years. Now, if you're a 60 or 70%, that money's going to get paid off sooner. But at 10%, trying to recoup $3,000 or $4,000 or however the amount
at
of money
$100 a month, right?
So
yeah, it's just better when you're doing separation pay. You're never going to see a number that's so big that actually will make sense to never file a claim. You have no idea what's going to happen to you in the future because of what happened in the service on a secondary basis or a direct service connect. You just don't know. It's going to get worse. I can tell you that if you're under the age of 55.
So what I would suggest to see the Don 1569, if you're able to and you have more things wrong with you, file additional claims to get your percentage up higher to get that back pay paid off sooner. So you can actually
Can you just pay it off out of your bank account? Is that an option as well?
I would think so, yeah. I would think so, but
I'm not sure.
You have to contact the VA and debt collections and all that kind of stuff and see.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be more than glad to take their money, get their money sooner than later.
Right.
They are an organization about money and not giving it to us. All right. Anything else?
Rochelle T. I filed an increase for migraines, and the company for the CMP exam said that an exam wasn't needed. Is this a good sign? That makes me, depends on what your evaluation, if you're already at 50% and you're at the schedule maximum and you didn't realize you're at the schedule maximum, then yeah, that's a good sign. Otherwise, that kind of makes me scratch my head unless there's already other evidence that supports the 50% evaluation where the exam's not necessary.
It's weird that let me hop in here. It's either really good or really bad, but that's a decision that's a call that you as a rater make. There's enough evidence in here, so I don't need to schedule a CMP exam. It's not needed. It's usually not at the CMP examiner's level making that determination, right?
Correct.
So yeah, that's a head scratcher. Good thing is that will not remain a mystery forever. You will get a decision letter and you will find out exactly what happened. You'll either have your claim denied or you'll win it.
All right, so this one's going to be right down your alley since you're diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome.
From RO?
So from RO, yes. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome in 2014, but I've had it since I'm about midway through my service. How do I get it service connected?
Yep. File a claim for it. It's a tricky one. With mine, I had all the symptoms. What's that?
Yeah, you got service connected.
Yeah, mine got service connected. I didn't file a claim for it. The CNP examiner put down my symptoms, and the rater actually saw that the rater gave it to me and gave me a 60% rating for it. But I was talking about my lack of mobility because that's just what happens to me. I just know it's tricky, and it also they make it a little bit more confusing because chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia are closely interwoven, the symptoms, and some doctors believe in one and not the other, so be prepared for the fibromyalgia test as well. It's just a weird one, and it's even weirder how I won it by I had the symptoms but I didn't file a claim for it. How do you get it service connected? I mean, you file a claim for it specifically. You're talking about since 2014. That is not new evidence, so you don't need to go talking back to 2014. When you file a claim, you want to talk about what's going on right now. Anything past a year, the VA is not going to look at it, so you don't need to be talking about it. So you don't need to refer to you were diagnosed. Get a current diagnosis would be the first step.
All right, so Israel Bruton is asking, what are our thoughts or my thoughts, since I'm answering questions, on the regional office raters denying SMC/aid and attendance and putting that you don't have a 100% rating in the denial. That's actually part of the criteria. You have to have a 100% evaluation in order to receive aid and attendance. Another reason for denial, a lot of times with aid and attendance, is the need
Well,
for
if
aid
you're
and
going the housebound, if you're going that route, right? The other one's
right,
the housebound route. There's two ways
right.
to get there. But yeah.
But the other reason a lot of times aid and attendance gets denied, even when you have the 100% evaluation, is that your need for aid and attendance is due to a non-service connected disability. So let's say, because the examiner has to put on the 2680, which is the aid and attendance examination form, they have to say why it's needed. Well, you need aid and attendance because you have dementia. Well, if you're not service connected for dementia, you're shit out of luck. You very well may need attendance, but it has to be related to a service-connected disability. So,
and how many conditions do you have? Me and you are done. 100% permanent in total. The disabilities keep stacking up. I'm not filing claims for them. They don't know about them. We have a lot of stuff in our notes and our records that aren't service connected. So make sure if you're going for aid and attendance or anything, any SMC, make sure that you're, the service connected disability is causing it, and it's clear. And it's clear by filing a claim. That's the clarity part. BHA and VBA are different animals.
So Dorothy Lindley, getting back on the hearing loss and tinnitus train. My husband is rated 0% for hearing loss and 10% for tinnitus. If he files an increase, will that affect his tinnitus rating? Currently, right now, no. He's already at the schedule maximum for tinnitus, so the only thing his hearing can do is go up. In the future, could they possibly be combined? Remains to be seen. I would tend to leave that alone. I mean, unless there's, I mean, you can get a 10% for hearing loss and a separate 10% for tinnitus the way it stands right now. But in the future, if you have a 0 for hearing loss and a 10 for tinnitus, once they get rid of the 6260 diagnostic code, that could end up into being a combined rating.
Yeah, the more important thing on this question is if he's rated at 0% for hearing loss, what is the criteria for a higher evaluation, like 10%, and does he meet it? And if he's wearing hearing aids or prescribed hearing aids, he probably doesn't meet it. So it's probably not worth, that's what the increases all come down to. Do you meet the requirements, and can you win the requirements? If the answers to those are yes, it's worth looking at, but most likely he doesn't meet them, especially if he's wearing hearing aids, if that makes sense.
I have not been to a hearing loss examination forever, nor am I prescribed.
Right. I've been to one.
Nor have I been prescribed hearing aids. Do they let you keep your hearing aids in a hearing loss exam, or do they make you take them out?
I don't know. I haven't been in that either. I would assume that they're probably in because that's how they're rating you when you're, at a CMP exam. I don't know I don't know what that's like though.
Okay.
But just kind of generally speaking, if you have a low rating for hypertension and you take meds, that's what controls it. You do not want to not take your meds, go to the CNP exam, and then drop dead because your life is more important than a 10% rating. So generally speaking, the meds do help, and you want to keep taking them or whatever you're prescribed. So
do I want to take?
I don't know how that would work. What's that?
Do I want to take Dan Law's question?
What question? I don't know.
Dan Law.
I don't know if that's a question. Go for it. Whatever you're doing.
Why do MST claims take so long?
Oh, okay, got you. Dan Law. Okay. Why do they?
Well, there's a lot of factors.
And first question is, do they? I'm not familiar of sure, yes.
There is a backlog of MST claims that I am aware of. And they do. There is a backlog. There is a lack of
Shortage of
training.
raters, probably.
Well, not necessarily a shortage of raters, a shortage of adequately trained raters. Let's put it that way. At one time,
But what are we talking about here? If the average claim, which I'm still going with 5 to 6 months, how much does that add to the average wait period? Because 6 months is a long ass time. Is it adding 3 or 4 months to that?
It
Unknown.
is, yeah. There's so many rabbit holes we could go down on there. It's
Yep.
the MST Center. There's just so many issues going on with that. What's the VA's priority at the moment? Are MST claims taking priority over PACT Act? I mean, there's so much crap going on that.
I would say that these things are completely out of our control. So get the medical
Correct.
evidence, prove your claim, and it's going to take as long as it's going to take. Don't worry about what they may or may not be doing. Your claim will be adjudicated at some point. And yeah, not everything works at the same speed. I've seen claims processed and adjudicated within 24 hours of submission, and then I've seen over a year or years or completely forgot about. Slipped through the
Okay,
cracks completely. That's happened.
James Good just answered our question. I just had a CMP exam for hearing loss and had to take my hearing aids out.
Oh,
So
okay, cool. That actually makes sense because how would that work, right? The little beeper thing, like headphones over the hearing aid. Yeah, that wouldn't actually practically work.
okay,
Cool. Thanks
so
for that.
South Jersey Artisan, like MST raters, doesn't all MST get special review? Yes, you have to be an MST rater, you have to rate at least 10 MST claims and then have a 90% or more um, quality review on those ratings to get MST certified. Once you're MST certified, then you're good to go. Does 10
That
does
process alone, so that's 10 MST claims. You need the results of those claims to come back so they can see that you're over 90%. So that process is at least 6 months to a year, right? To get all.
No, you can get that. You can actually get that done in a couple of weeks, but you're
Oh,
having
okay.
to have a second signature review. So you're having to have a decision review officer review
I
your decision
see. Okay.
on the MST claim to make sure that you adjudicated it properly.
All right. So that positive mark is coming on the way out because you're working with somebody or under somebody else's second signature. Okay. All right, we're digging way down into the non-tinnitus claim area here. This video was just a update or bring you the changes that are going to be coming. We're going to continue doing more of these live sessions. Join my boot camp if you want to learn more about the VA claims process or you need medical evidence. And we're going to cut it off here, and we will see you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.